Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Conversation of Our Generation, where we are solving the problems of today with the wisdom of the past. And today, I have another great interview for you with Amy Mastrine, a talented, amazing artist who is doing lots of cool stuff, really going back to the classical way of doing art, trying to learn how the great Renaissance masters did art. And I think that she is definitely doing a lot to really revive the art that we have in our culture today. I think that we talk a lot about how art has kind of lost its way, how can we reclaim beauty, why art is so integral to culture, and why they're so intertwined as you kind of see art and culture move together, and much more. And so definitely check out this episode. I definitely recommend listening and checking out more of what Amy's up to, because she has a lot of cool stuff going on. And before I also hop into the interview, I want to remind you to check out conversationforgeneration.com. If you go to /podcast there as well, you can find everywhere that the podcast is. Subscribe there. And if you are listening somewhere, definitely go check out the YouTube channel. I'm now recording these interviews with video and putting them up on YouTube. So you can subscribe there. Just search Conversation of Our Generation. Or if you're listening on the podcast, before you go subscribe on YouTube, leave a rating and review. That really helps. And follow on Twitter @ConOfOurGen, or go to facebook.com/ConversationOurGeneration to keep up with everything that's coming out here. I'm hoping to do more and more of these interviews. I have a couple more lined up that'll be coming out soon. So definitely stay tuned. We got lots of great guests happening, more conversations happening, which makes me feel good as well. And so with that, let's hop over to the conversation with Amy. Well, thanks for joining me today, Amy. I'm really excited to have you here on the Conversation of Our Generation. I think this will be a really good conversation and lots of great stuff I hope we'll dive into here. But thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
For sure. Well, so for those of my listeners who are not familiar with you, are you able to give me a little bit of background on who you are? Just a little bit of an overview for everyone who doesn't know who you are.
Sure, yeah. My name's Amy Mastrine. I'm an oil painter. I've been painting professionally for about 8 years now, but I've been painting my entire life. I'm also a marketing professional, and I'm just starting to get into writing. I'm kind of building up somewhat of a Twitter following, so I've been asked to write for a publication called Evie. So yeah, I guess in general, I'd say I'm an artist and a writer.
Awesome. That's great. And so you said you've been painting since, you were young. Was there something that made you want to become an artist? Was it just, kind of a specific moment, or was it just what you enjoyed doing and just always did?
That's a good question. I think the short answer is I honestly think it was God. I remember the moment. I remember being in school and drawing and coloring, and I remember just thinking, like, I can't believe people don't just want to do this all the time. Like, it's so much fun. But other people around me didn't feel the same way. But and then the teacher asked me, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, Amy? And I was like, an artist, like, without missing a beat. So it's just something I always knew that I really enjoyed doing, and maybe was gifted at. So yeah, I've just always kind of known that about myself.
That's awesome. I think that's great, because when people ask me what I wanted to be when I was a kid, I was like, I don't know. What's my dad do? I'll do that. I hadn't really thought about it. I was like, I just want to enjoy it, I guess. I don't know. What do adults do?
Yeah, that's not a lot of people or I feel very lucky, because a lot of people tell me that they even now, like, they're older and they're not really sure what they're supposed to do, or they're interested in a lot of different things. But for me, it was always just like a very clear, like, this is my passion. So, but yeah, not that it's just, I'm just very lucky to know that about myself.
Mm-hmm. And so, with art, what you do you have kind of, you said you're an oil painter. Do you have other mediums? What draws you, I guess I should ask, what draws you to kind of the more traditional ways of doing art, when you can do computer graphics, you can do all of this digital design stuff? What makes you want to do that instead?
That's another good question. I guess I just have, I honestly think it goes off of feeling a lot. I just like the feeling of using traditional materials more than the feeling of working behind a screen. It feels a lot more direct and personal, and it's not like there's like a layer between me and the art like there is with digital. It's something I've been trying to develop my thoughts around because, yeah, it feels a lot more raw and human when I'm painting with like a paintbrush and making brush strokes like directly onto a canvas versus when I've like downloaded a brush and I'm using like a pen on a screen. Like it's just, there's something different about it. And I think it's because you lose a lot of your signature and like the recording of who you are when you're drawing digitally. Like the line will sometimes be artificially perfect. Whereas in real life, if I make a stroke, there's all these subtleties in there that make it mine and make it a lot more human and personal. So, and I think that like, you know, every stroke that an artist makes is like a recording of their like existence and their, it's like your signature. It's like says a lot about, you know, the weight of your hand, you know, how much paint you used, all these like subtle decisions that you made, make it yours. So with digital, I think you just lose some of that. You just lose some of that character and personal, personal character is lost a little with digital. Even though the technology's, it's getting better. Like you can apply like more pressure or less and it'll record that, but it just, yeah, I also don't like that you can, delete what you've done. Like you can undo your last stroke. So it just, you know, psychologically it's so non-committal and like that leaves just so much room to question yourself and was that right, and like try something else, and it's almost too much freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's definitely true. I play guitar and I like music a lot, and I think that something that you lose in music is that same thing where you kind of play the note imperfectly, but it gives it, you know, like you can't really have the blues manufactured on a computer the same way. It doesn't have that. It loses the soulfulness I think that you get, and I think that's awesome. And I think that it also connects really well to, you know, the history of man, and like it comes back to like Chesterton's idea of the one thing we know about cavemen was that they were artists. That's all we have left of their culture at the time, and so you kind of are connecting back to really the earliest depths of humanity, and and the expression of people, you know, for tens of thousands of years. So that's definitely
Wow.
cool.
I didn't know he said that. That's wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I forget, I don't actually know what work it's from. I think it might be, shoot, I'll have to find it and put it in the show notes, and I'll let you know after this because it is not coming to mind, or maybe I can look it up here in a minute, but it is definitely something to check out. But yeah, so
Yeah.
um, do you have like favorite artists or periods of art that you look to for inspiration?
Oh, yeah. So I love, and I might say his name wrong because I'm such a nerd and I like read about people, but I'm not around people who talk about art that often. William Adolphe Bouguereau, I think that's how you say his name. He was a really talented oil painter, and he got a lot of support from like institutions, which that's something we don't do anymore, really, is like give institutional support to artists. Or maybe we do, and it's just a lot of modern art.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, but
With
you
the
know, he
man
was,
taped to a wall now.
yeah, or like just a squiggle of metal, who even knows. But yeah, what I like about him is he was Catholic. So he did a lot of like biblical scenes and like paintings of Jesus and Mary, and angels. He did beautiful angel pieces. But he also did a lot of like Greek mythology and I guess Roman mythology as well. So he would, you know, do like he did a lot of like the Greek gods and goddesses, and so I kind of like that like blending of like the old ancient world myths and stories with Christianity. I find that really interesting because my lineage is Mediterranean, so I think maybe that's why it appeals to me. But yeah, he's top in my book. I wish I could even like touch him, like or get even close to the level of talent that he was given. So
Yeah.
I really admire him.
And I think there's something too that speaks to people of that kind of blending of uh, kind of the Mediterranean cultures and Christianity, because for me, like, the reason I love like Thomas Aquinas as a thinker so much is he kind of married Aristotle's thought with the thought of the Christian church. And it was kind of a way to bring those two pillars together that are foundational. And so when you can kind of make those blend, I think that it speaks to us a lot. And that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, that it's two pillars. Yeah. Very important ideas in both sets, right? Yeah.
And so as we're kind of, looking at the culture, why is art important to culture? It seems to me that you can see the art getting worse at the same rate that our culture gets worse. It almost looks like I just know that I would go to the Chicago Museum of Art, and you go to or you go to New York or DC, some of these big cities that have the art museums. You go to the one that has, Renaissance painters in there, and then you go to the other museum that has, a tire and a pile of trash, or like some weird strobe light video that happens, and you're like, there's something obviously different about our cultures, and that kind of translates into the art. So if you want to kind of speak on that, give your thoughts.
Yeah, I think, man, I don't want to sound like super like negative about it, but I think it's just like a decline in standards. I think we just moved from like objective standards of beauty to subjective standards, where it's like, well, who's to say what's beautiful? Kind of this like, I don't know if it's like anti-authoritarian. It's just that no one can say what's better or worse than anything else. This is very like non-judgmental culture that we have, where like anything goes, very kind of like libertine, and almost like to live and let live, in my opinion. To the point where, if everything is subjective, then everything's meaningless, because with objective standards, it was like, I think that it gave artists, something to strive for. And they had guidance and some rules around like how they would create things, and they were taught how to draw and create things like within rules. And now it just, I think that things just decline when there aren't any rules or boundaries around what you can do. I think it's weird. It's like paradoxical that boundaries actually create freedom. Like, you actually have more room to make good art and be free if you have some boundaries. So if there are no boundaries, it's just complete chaos and degeneration. So I think it's hard for me to say exactly what caused the decline, but definitely change in thinking and change in standards for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what you touched on there with the kind of radical individualism that we have, that idea that whatever I think is right by my standards, and that's what matters. And it seems to me that is something that we would, if you were to say, murder is right by my standards, or just, if I give my 1-year-old child methamphetamines for breakfast, everyone would be like, no, that's not like a radically individualist thing. But so that we have the idea that there are standards. It's just, I feel like we don't want to hold ourselves to the standards that seem hard. It's very easy to sort of just throw paint at a wall. I saw a thing one time where Tiger Woods was, hitting paintballs into a canvas, and like, just for fun kind of thing. And he was selling it as like a Tiger Woods, but you could see that same painting in some art museums now, that because it's expressive or something. And and I see you're rolling your eyes, and so I think
I couldn't hide it.
But I think that idea of just expressing feeling without any form, it's, if you did that in a book form, it would just be like blah 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 blah, blah. It would just be gibberish. And that's what I feel like art has in a lot of ways become, either utilitarian, sort of like IKEA version of furniture, or like kind of weird gibberish nonsense. And so, but I guess for you, what are you doing then to kind of push back? I think that what you've done, and just looking, if you go to your Twitter account, you can see some of your art there. It seems to me like you're kind of calling back to that more classical way of doing it.
Yeah, I'm trying to, and it's been a recent like conscious effort. I always knew I didn't like the abstract stuff, and the like disintegrated, like, just, I never liked that deep down. but I really want to learn like the old ways of painting, like the way that old masters painted, old master style of painting. That information is kind of hard to find if you don't. It costs a lot to like do a workshop with an artist who knows how to paint like the old masters from the like Italian Renaissance. But you know, I'm trying to just with what I have teach myself and you know, talk to other artists and try to learn discipline. I think that that's something that's really missing is being disciplined. Like art isn't really supposed to be just like expressive and easy. I think actual art is there's skill involved and technique and studying and learning and I guess I am a bit of like an old school academic about it. I think that like there should be some standards that you meet, and you have to study light and shadow and depth, and you know, try your best, I guess. So yeah, I really want to revive the old ways and maybe use art to remind people of maybe what we lost or forgot that we shouldn't have, because I think humans do this over time. We kind of maybe get an insight or like some brilliant idea, and then over time it just like it doesn't get carried down and people forget. So
yeah, I agree. I think that there's a tendency to want to rebel against that. I don't know if you listen to Jordan Peterson, but he talks about that idea that the father culture kind of, there's a sense that you want to push back and push the bounds. And I think that artists who are doing that correctly kind of do push the bounds in a good way. The Renaissance painters to push the bounds of what was before kind of the structure, but they kind of still had those limits, and they didn't push it to a sense that it was just crumbled into nothing. They pushed and kind of expanded rather than just tore down. And I think that that's where art really helps in culture, is kind of reaching into the abyss that we can't fully articulate and pulling back insights and helping us to incorporate new experiences. And
exactly.
And so as far as what sorts of things do you enjoy painting? Because I noticed a few different things, and you had the very classical like Madonna with Child, and then I saw sort of some other paintings that were like Greeks. It sort of looked like Greek, but kind of in a modern look, not in a bad way, but not the way they would have painted it, sort of taking that style and bringing it to 2020. So I think that it was kind of cool to see that classical modern mashup.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of what I struggle with. That I want to kind of maybe merge the contemporary with the traditional. I think that might be a good route to go, because then you bridge both worlds. Like maybe people who are fond of what's traditional, but maybe you also kind of want to reach people who maybe don't see as much of a problem with modern culture. So I kind of like the idea of being a bridging the divide there. And yeah, I go back and forth though. Like I definitely don't want to be like a modern artist that's just doing like kind of what everybody is thinking they need to do. But yeah, I definitely want to like revive the traditional. I like to paint people, and I always liked that, and I didn't know how to articulate why until recently, but people are extremely complicated, so it's challenging, which is fun for me. Like I like the challenge of painting people, and you know, people are beautiful. Like we're made in God's image, so it seems like a very divine subject that you can paint. Not that like trees and things aren't, but so I want to tell this story. I lived in San Francisco for a while, and I used to visit this statue of Junipero Serra, who was a saint, you know, posthumously. And they tore the statue down during the riots that happened recently, and I was really upset. So I called the San Francisco Arts Commission and asked them what happened to the statue, and if they were going to like sell it or put it back up, or what would happen. And the woman on the phone was very like, she seemed very upset that this was happening, because she is responsible for the safety of these statues. And she said that soon the new statues that will be going up in the city will be non-representational, so they won't be humans in the statues. They'll be like, you know, just modern shapes, because those aren't as controversial. Because if you put up I guess in the modern world, if you have an image of a person, well, people are sinners, like people are not perfect. So in this weird modern culture we have, like, I feel like it's controversial to put up images of people unless they're like just absolutely perfect or completely woke or whatever, like fit the mainstream narrative. So I find that really, really disheartening. And so that kind of emboldened like why I want to keep painting people as well.
Mm-hmm. I think it's funny that kind of the classical way of looking at things has become the counterculture in a lot of ways. It's very cultural to put an ice cream cone up in Trafalgar Square and just kind of do silly things like that, but to stand I just they want to tear down statues of Jesus, and you can't get more perfect than that, right? Or
Yeah.
Mary, and so it's like those are two perfect people who never did sin, and they still want to tear down. So what are they going to do for someone else who has a complicated life? And yeah, that's definitely tough. But one thing I really liked was kind of talking about that idea of sort of bringing the ancient to the contemporary and finding a way to meld that, because that's so much of what I try to do is take that wisdom of the past and apply it to today. So it's not going to, like Aquinas's 5 proofs are not going to look the same as they did, like I guess almost 1,000 years ago. I mean, he was in the 1200s, right? Yeah. So we're almost as he's closer to Saint Augustine and to like really the church fathers than he is to us. And so there's so much I think that has changed that you have to still apply those eternal principles in a different way. And so I think it's good because art does have this eternal, it shares in this objective beauty that is eternal. And so when you can take that tradition and bring it to today, not only do you educate people in the past, but you kind of carry that on in your own expression of it. And so I really like that idea a lot.
Yeah, that you described it really, really well. This is a new thing for me. I feel like it's important to, bring the old into the new, because you can't go back fully. Like I romanticize the past, and I like this meme on Twitter that's like return to tradition. Like I think that's a really good new meme, but we can't actually go back in full. Like we do have to contend with the modern world and like actually and move forward. But I want to try to bring what's good of the past forward with us. So yeah, I think that art is a good way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think, we mentioned right before this that you enjoy Roger Scruton. I think that one reason why I was drawn to him so much is that he did have that sense where he was addressing today's problems, but he drew on this. I mean, I don't know, probably anybody who's seems more well-read in, the last 20 years, who's out of all the college professors who were out there writing and lecturing, he seems to me just like he's probably read everything that was ever written. And so to be able to draw on that wealth of knowledge and in all sorts of different ways. I mean, he talked, the soul of the world, I think, is one that's just the most beautiful way to understand how beauty works. But then he has political and, very detailed understanding of Marxism and how it evolved over the last 150 years. And so it's this wide range of drawing on just a huge breadth of knowledge and bringing it into today. But yeah, I just thought that seemed to connect, especially having mentioned, enjoying his work.
Yeah, he's great. I love his documentary called Beauty, What It Is and Why It Matters. Is that the title of it? Or am I thinking of a book I read about beauty?
It might be. I think he did have a book that was like that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So he might have done a documentary on it as well. Is that on Netflix or where is it?
Oh, it's definitely not on Netflix. It's too pure for Netflix. No, there's some good stuff on Netflix, but I mostly don't like it. But yeah, it was a BBC documentary, and it's very much worth watching to see him like out in the world looking at buildings and explaining like why this one isn't beautiful versus like this place. And he talked a lot about how we don't build places of dwelling anymore. Like places are kind of should be built to be somewhat homey in a place that you want to stay in. And now we just have this very modern world where everyone's very transient, and spaces are almost encouraging you to move around and keep going because there's nothing there that we're not building places you'd like want to remain in and like call home. I really liked his thoughts on architecture. I'm a painter, but I think architecture is actually the highest art because it's what you live in. Like, it's just, I think I respect architects more than painters. Not that I don't love painters, but yeah.
Well, it's something that you can interact with so much. Like from a painting, you have to kind of see it and enjoy it, but like you said, with architecture, it's where you live, it's where you go to church, it's where you go to study, whatever that is. And so you kind of have this real, almost personal interaction with the buildings. And I do like that. I think that I definitely follow a lot of accounts that just post pictures of buildings on Twitter. That's that's kind of my guilty pleasure. It's kind of it's a lot, but
yeah, I think Kanye West actually said that it can be like porn, like if you're looking at too much of it, which I thought was funny. I was like, oh, am I guilty of that? Because I do that. I flood my feed with just like beautiful architecture and things like that. But yeah, it's inspiring. It's that's another thing we need to revive. I feel like people used to take building a lot more seriously. And you know, in Europe, they would build these churches that took like 400 years to complete. So people were working on them and they knew they would never see the end results of it, or even any of their immediate family would see the end results of it, but they were doing it for a higher purpose, for something eternal. And I just
have three generations who work on the church as well, like grandfather to like grandchild, even great grandchild could work on that same church, because you know there wasn't as much mobility. It's not like you were a builder and then your kid went to college and then became a marketer. And it wasn't, you know, you kind of did the same thing. And so they'd have that. I love, that is one thing that's amazing, is when I was young, I did get to go to like England and Ireland and see old buildings. And just, I was in 7th grade, my grandparents took me and my cousins. And it's just so cool because like a young building there can be older than the United States of America. Like,
wow.
I mean, if you look at Notre Dame and some of the churches that are there, they're over 1,000 years old. Some of them, I don't remember exactly how old Notre Dame is, but there was definitely like the Tower of London, you know, Henry the 6th or 7th was in prison there, maybe the 8th. And like all the way back to, you know, and it was old then, you know, it was been around by then. And so it's just cool to see, and to just, I think that that's the cool thing, that you can really almost touch and feel history and be a part of it and stand where kings stood 1,000 years ago. It definitely is cool.
Yeah. Are you English and Irish? Did you feel like that connected you to your lineage?
So I'm Irish. Yeah. My grandpa, his parents both came from Ireland, like were immigrants. And then my mom's other grandparents both came from Ireland. So that whole side of the family is like 100% Irish. And then my dad's a mutt.
Oh yeah.
he's just a big mutt, but
yeah, I think that's I would love to go back to my ancestral homeland. I haven't been to Italy. Very interested in that, but I don't know, with all this COVID stuff, if I'll get the chance to. But
it'll open back up eventually. I feel like, I mean, Europe's already starting to open back up. We're just keeping it locked down here in the United States because it's politically advantageous for people who want to cause disruption. So I'm not too worried about it. I think you'll have the chance to soon. But anyways, I do think that things will open back up. We had a little glitch there and we're back for editing purposes when people wonder why it jumped. But I think that, yeah, we'll have the chance to go back over there. But so you'll get the chance, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so I guess to kind of start to wrap up a little bit, I'm curious from, you know, the modern sense of how you get your art out there. I think that that's something for people who are looking to engage in creating art, distributing art, that harkens back to something more, that yearns for something more in beauty and truth. How do you get it out there? How do you see other people getting art out there? And where can other people go to find that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So I just post my art to social media and make sure I have a website, which is like a hub of my, you know, my gallery. And it's hard for artists, I think, to self-promote. I have a lot of trouble with it, honestly. I'm really nervous to share things sometimes. And I have a wonderful twin sister who encourages me, and she'll kind of promote me on my behalf. but you know, the internet has been very, very generous to artists. I think people I put it on social media, people will find me and, you know, want to buy something. So you have to be somewhat organized. You know, you have to make it somewhat easy for people to, you know, browse your gallery, and then also having a shop is a very good idea, whether that's like an Etsy or Squarespace, somewhere where people can go and like browse things if you want to sell them. But I do see this like need for a different a social media site for artists emerging, because Instagram is kind of compromised. I think it's just there's a lot of bad stuff on there, just like, you know, kind of like trashy content and things like that. And it used to just be all independent artists until Facebook bought it. So that's something as an artist I've been very upset about, because we kind of lost a good opportunity there after it got bought. So I'm seeing like definitely a space for something new to emerge where people can go look at art and artists can network with each other. It doesn't exist yet, but yeah, I guess like my advice is just to be kind of unashamed about it and uninhibited and share your work as much as possible. And I could be better at this, honestly, and let people know that you're selling things and trying to make things. And it'll surprise you. It always surprises me that people like what I do and want to buy things. And so yeah, you just have to be kind of brave, I guess.
Yep. No, I think that's definitely tough to find that line between, you know, bragging and coming off as, you know, a little I guess cocky and
yeah,
having a bit of swagger that you need to, you know, in the sales and marketing game. It kind of, you need a little bit of that. I definitely have trouble, like, I don't have trouble talking about, you know, on Twitter for people to check out my podcast or something, but if like someone I know says something about things, like it takes like a friend to be like, yeah, and you know, Nick has a podcast that talks about that, because I wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, you should listen to my podcast in person, because I don't know why. It just kind of pushy.
Yeah, it's hard. And I'm the same way, like in person. Sometimes I'm like, I'm a painter, but I don't want to sound arrogant. And people will mistake you like wanting to just like tell them what you're doing for arrogance. Someone came to my Twitter and replied to my like pinned tweet, which has some of my paintings, and was like, you're very full of yourself, aren't you? And I was just like, actually, no, it was really hard to put this out there, but if you think I should be, cool. Like, I don't know. So yeah, people can be kind of jerks about it. But yeah, but I would just say ignore the haters. And if you have a hater, it probably means you're doing something right. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And half the haters on Twitter are just bots. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like Pinterest is a pretty good place too for getting stuff like that out there, especially because like Instagram, you can't like link back to a particular, you have to kind of just have your one link. As far as I haven't been on Instagram for like 3 years, so maybe they've changed that, but you can only have like a link in your bio. Like it seems to be having each of your paintings, like kind of be able to take it back to somewhere on your shop or something like that. Pinterest could be good.
Yeah, Pinterest is great for aesthetics, and I get a lot of like reference photos on Pinterest and look at other people's art on there. I should be better at posting my own stuff there. But a company actually, I think, sprung up because of that problem you just described on Instagram. It's called Linktree, and it's like, yeah, you're familiar with that? It's like one link within that. You follow that link, and then you can have multiple links in there. But yeah, Instagram has a lot of silly things like that. You can't put a link in a caption. I don't understand why you wouldn't be able to do that.
It keeps you on their platform longer. It makes you have to pay to be able to link away.
Yeah. It's Instagram. I think it's dying a little bit. It's hard to tell, but it just seems like it's not as active as it used to be. And you know, you said you haven't been on there in 3 years, so maybe that's confirming what I'm thinking.
I'm why it's dying.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, for, you know, talking about this, where can people find more of your art? Where can people find out more about you if they're interested?
Yeah, well, if you want to see my art, Instagram is a good place to follow me. And my username is just Amy_Mastrine. And I have a website, which is amy-mastrine.com. And then on Twitter, I post my art sometimes, but I also want to respect that medium. It's not, I guess it's becoming more visual, but I always feel like that's more for like ideas and stuff. So I post my art there like somewhat more rarely, but you can follow me there too. And it's Amy Mastrine is my handle.
Awesome. Yep. And that's great. And, on Twitter, you can always just like put a quote with it. Then it's like, that's what
Then
I
it's
say.
words.
Yeah. Just quote
Yeah.
the beauty, then the picture. Yeah. No,
Right.
so I'll definitely link up to all those things in the show notes as well. And I mean, do you have any last thoughts or anything else that, you want to share with the audience before we kind of sign off here? Anything that,
I could show you my newest painting, which is right
yes,
here.
let's see it.
It's a girl in the woods. So, and
Awesome.
it's this, yeah, it's a lot of trees to paint, but I'm having fun with it. And it's seasonal, so I think it's appropriate for fall. But yeah, that's about it. That's all I have. Thanks very much. This was very fun.
Yeah, this is awesome. And I really appreciate you coming on today. And I'll be sure to link up for anyone who's listening. Definitely go and check out more Amy's work and follow her on Twitter, Instagram, all of those places. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Good talking to you.
You too. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Amy. I think it was really insightful, really, really eye-opening to see how art is changing and to get a lot of insight as someone who is not an artist by any means. I think my mom kept one thing out of kindness for me from my art as a kid. And so definitely something that I'm not familiar with, but I think it was great to hear that there is a resurgence, that there is some people trying to bring back a revival. And so that feels very promising. And if you're interested in what she's doing, definitely check out the show notes. Lots more there, and go to conversationfourgeneration.com to get more interviews like this, like my interview that I recently did with Matt Nunes, of the author of Last Call, learning how to become a published author, and others that will be coming down the line. There'll be a lot more there for you. So definitely check that out. And as always, thanks for listening to the Conversation of Our Generation. Let's get the dialogue going. I'll talk to you next time.